you so much for joining us. Sorry for the delay. It was the technical issues. Today we're hosting Mr. Shahram, who is very well knowledgeable. He's a lawyer and he works on real estate legal. So today we will be asking him a few questions in order to take us through the system that is currently built in Dubai that has changed throughout the years, and it's becoming more and more solid to protect both buyers and sellers at the same time for Dubai to be the safe haven of the real estate investment. And this is mainly what is driving the economy in the past few years in our city. So thank you so much, Shahram, for joining us.
My pleasure.
And if you can just give us a quick brief on who you are before we start. So, then we can start having some conversations. And we have a few questions for you today, so you can assist us cover for us and for the people attending with us here today and the few thousands that are already connected with us online.
My pleasure. So I'm a partner at a law firm called Afridi Angell. The law firm's been here for about 50 years. I specialize in real estate. That's what relates to our discussion. I've been here since 2002, and I have represented for a long time, mostly developers, investors, high net worth investors, as well as others who are interested in the real estate sphere, which are engineers, entrepreneurs, to the full circuit of the industry I've been brought to.
So we all know that at a certain time, especially in 2008, there was a big crisis around the world and the real estate sector got really affected. And Dubai was one of the cities that really got affected at this time. And since that day, a lot of rules and regulations has changed in order for the city to be protected against another happening, let's put it this way, on that scale. And this is why, mainly, this came because Dubai was selling in the off-plan market in particular at that time, and a lot of the construction structures stopped. So what happens since that day till date on the new rules and regulations that were dictated by Dubai Land Department and by government in order to protect the investors and to guarantee for them that they won't have a similar problem like the one that happened at FAD?
Yeah, it's a great question. What are the protections that are there for investors? And you'd be interested to know that those protections had just been introduced when the Lehman Brothers crash happened, which then affected us 6 months to a year late. And so the government of Dubai it is to be very forward-looking. They looked at introducing off-plan purchase protections. They did, but when you introduce them, it's not innate. It takes time. It's organic. It takes time for everyone to comply, for systems to adjust. And so that's what we saw in previous down cycles in 2008, when the law had been just introduced, but not quite thoroughly implemented in the market or the government. Now, fast forward to 2025, we have two specific laws, which we'll talk about, that give you very good protection as an investor. The first law is Law 13 of 2008, which is the interim real estate registration law, which effectively says that if you're buying off plan, then the government will give you an accrued registration, an interim real estate deed, a title deed that you can hold in your hand while the building is being built. And then once it's completed, you exchange that for a title deed and a finance. So that's the first law. And that's many other provisions to protect off-plan purchase. But that's one of the main features that get this interim real estate, this type thing as construction. The second law, which is a sister law, is Law 8 of 2007. You can see the dates on these laws. So they were introduced a while ago, but it took a while for the market to catch up. And that's trust account law, which says that whenever you pay for an off-plan unit, that money doesn't go into the investor, into developers account. It goes into a trust.
We know it as escrow.
The escrow.
The escrow.
Yes, that's right. So it's called the trust account, but we in the market call the escrow account. It goes into the escrow account, and that escrow account is not controlled by the developer, as you know. It's controlled effectively by a rear government that monitors the money that comes in, the expenditures to go out, make sure that the progress is continuing. That money is in trust effectively held on behalf of the investors. So these two laws are the major pillars that give confidence to off-plan investors.
So in summary, we could say that if you are investing in an off-plan business, building in Dubai with a regulated developer, first, your money is protected. That's because it is not used. So the developer is not really taking these profit margins from the installments that you are paying. And the second one is that you will go home. So you have a legal paper that shows legally that you own a particular unit that you have deposited your funds in.
Correct.
So you have a legal certification that of an ownership. And today they have introduced, as I know, in the past 2 years, that ownership of food can even entitle you of a golden visa.
Yes.
Because this proves that you are already an owner. Value 2 million dirhams will give you a visa, a golden visa of 10 years in the UAE, because that certificate is that strong to prove that you have invested in the country itself, not in a building in particular.
What you said, and I think one of the most important things that you said, is reputable development. That's key.
Yeah, definitely.
Irregulated, reputable, all regulated, but reputable is very important. Select and others who are reputable, been around, proven themselves through construction of work that they've done. That's very important consideration, I think, for investors when they choose to invest. Because then you know that the monies are dealt with correctly. You know they're going to go into escrow, and the past performance of that developer shows what that they can. And that I think is key in this market. It was key in 2008. It's also key in that content.
Quick one. When you are investing in an off-plan market and you are buying, as you mentioned, the first payment of the 20%, let's say, entitles you to be registered in our point system.
Yes.
But in order to be registered in our boot, there is a contract, which is a sales purchase agreement, which is an SPA, that the investor has to sign with the developer.
Yes.
That protect both parties. What are, in your opinion, the red flags that an investor should look at before signing that contract? What are the points that they need to make sure they're available in order for them to be protected?
So this market's been around for 20 plus years. And the terms of these contracts are more or less standard. And so if you start seeing contracts that are beyond this end in certain ways, you should definitely have red flags. So I've written down a few things. Obviously, the SPS will register with the deal.
Definitely. It has to be approved legally by Dubai Land Park.
That's very important. Then the completion date that's in that SPA, usually this is standard. So the completion date is of X date, December 31st, 2026, but I could extend that by 12 months. That 12-month extension is usually quite standard. If you start getting into 36 months, 48 months, extension does. So that tends to be quite standard.
So any extension clause of handover date beyond 12-month period, it's questionable.
12 to 24 months. I've seen 24 months in a lot of markets, and beyond that. Correct. It is questionable. Why is this developer asking? That's not customary. It's on sand. Now we have custom, whereas back then we have practice. And then the termination rights are important. So look at the contract, look at the termination. What if the seller does it? Can I get my money back? When do I get my money back? Do I get it back with interest? So that's could be standard these days. And then understand that there's a difference between completion date and handover date.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So you complete the building, but that's not when you get the apartments. No. You'll get it down the road in a month or 2 to 3 months, whatever it is. This thing called force majeure, it's French there, which really means acts of God.
Yeah.
It's a pandemic, storm, there's a rain event.
War, cyclone,
correct.
earthquake.
That's exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
If force majeure is, the financial difficulty of the developer to build or anything strange, that should be a huge red flag for you when you're looking at purchasing from that developer. So good developers will have fair contracts that are balanced, protect the developer as well as the purchaser. And those are some of the revenue.
This is a little bit, when you are buying in the IFC for Yansol, it's a different law.
Yes, it's an interesting discussion. So, it's very strange because when you go to any country, you go to Portugal, it's Portuguese law, and you go to Nigeria, it's Nigerian law. You come to the UAE, and we have UAE law.
And the IFC.
Except when you go to the DIFC, it's like you're crossing into another country.
Yeah.
And there we have a modification of English law. And also the ADGM in Abu Dhabi, which is similar to the IFC, we also have English law. So the question is why? Why would you do such a thing? And the reason is that these free zones were designed to attract financial institutions, banks, financial advisors,
and legal firm.
Yeah, and they're comfortable with that law internationally. So they can just relocate from London or Paris
without changing
exactly
under the governing laws.
We know this, our policy to comply with this, etc. So that's the oddity that's there. You're right.
Yep. It costs a little bit more. It's a 5%.
And they have their own land department.
Yes,
as you know.
You pay 5%.
Yes. The Dubai land department does not govern
No.
their own real estate.
It doesn't even show on your certification on ownership. If you own the IFC apart, doesn't show on your ownership in Dubai land department.
No.
They're completely different.
Correct. It's like a different.
Exactly. So what are the interim titles that are required, do you think, in the real estate transactions?
Yeah.
Why do they really matter? We spoke about the output, for example. What are the others that might be of an interest for an investor?
Well, the Okud is really the one to focus on. It is the confidence building measure that Law 13 of 2008 gives by saying to off-plan investors, I know you're paying money for something that hasn't been built. It's quite risky, right? You're paying money for something that hasn't been built. So the government then steps in to help the developer build that confidence, to be able to give that confidence to the purchaser. And so one of the primary ways to do that is say, here is your title. Your name is here. You have purchased unit 4008 on the 40th floor. I know it's not built yet.
Another one that we didn't talk about earlier or mention on these just a quick one that I'm really interested in today, just to create more security focus. When you have an output and then the development doesn't continue, then it goes back to land department. You the money you paid comes back to you, correct?
The money,
no liquidation of the project.
The money that you pay. So the way that now this discussion will focus on the escrow. Because the money that you paid goes into the pool that is the escrow account, the bank account, which the developer cannot touch without the government's permission. And so you have the protection of the government to say, the money that came in, we have full accounting for. 100 million came in. And out of the 100 million, we have 50 million structure. We have 10 million for consulting fees, etc. And there's 40 million left. And so there is an account. The question is, what stage of construction it's at, and how much you paid out, and how much money is coming. So it's, in theory, yes, it would be, you could get all your money back. But honestly, it's like a revolving.
It depends. There are conditions. Sometimes it can.
Yeah, what cycle of that construction, where you are at that stage of money being paid out. So yes, definitely there's a protection scheme there. There's trust account, escrow account law, and the bank account that's protected by the government. But how much you give back depends on the cycle of construction.
Today there is two components on investing in real estate, mainly in the UAE, known to flip. And it's like when people buy on plan and they resell in the middle or towards the end of the project, or people that are focusing on a return on investment from a rental perspective.
Yes.
So I want resale is something very it's a process that is done on a secondary market deal, which means they go to a trustee office and they exchange with the buyer and the seller, which is not related to the developer at all. They just take a non-objection certificate from our side and stating that the original buyer has paid all his dues. Everything else is that between two different individuals. So it's not something that we regulate or we have a say in. But the other investment which a lot of our business partners do is they buy the apartments and they rent them, because in Dubai, the return on investment from a rental perspective is one of the highest in the world.
Yes.
At some places, if you bought your apartment, let's say in 2019 today, and you're renting now, you're making maybe 12%, 15% profit.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, because the prices that were launched after COVID directly, it's let's say 1,800 square foot. So a regular one-bedroom apartment in Business Bay area was at the price of $1 million. Today they're renting at 115,000 or 120,000, and then you pay the service charge. Then you end up with 12%, which is, I think, it's an amazing return.
12% after tax.
Yeah, but there's no
tax. No. So it's 12% after tax when you compare it.
Exactly. So what are the key legal considerations for a property owner from a renting perspective? If he wants to put it, if he has multiple units that he wants to put in Dubai market, and what are the laws and the regulation dictated by Dubai Land to protect me as a landlord? Because for a personal thing that happened with me, I had a tenant in one of the units that I own, and then the guy decided not to pay. And his check bounced, by the way. And then after 1 month, he vanished.
Yeah.
It was a month due. And for me as a landlord, seriously, to file a case and go against them for 8,000 dirham,
Difficult.
it's because then I pay the lawyer money and the energy and the whole thing. So I just let go. But then I realized that I have to cancel a lot of things that he already started. So it was costing money. Yes, but it's not worth it to go against it. So I just imagine if somebody has like 10 of these, not only one, at least dealing with things like that. What are the laws that really protect us as landlords or investor who owns units and is working on the ROI concept of rental?
Well, before I get into the laws, in the case that you mentioned, and I think for all landlords, there has to be cost benefit. Now it's in your head. Do I proceed to do this? Do I not? Let's just finish it off and move on to the next tenant. I think that's true for any landlord anywhere, and the same goes here. There's a fixed cost to running after someone and trying to get into it, paying the court fees, lawyers, your time, your dealing. So that's a very good point. Everybody has. As far as the law is concerned, there is a law. It's been around for a long time. It's been rewritten. So the law 26, 2007, the landlord-tenant law as amended. I will tell you this, Frank, it is tenant favorable.
Yeah, it is big.
The law is tenant favorable. So
For long term, it is.
for long, generally it is. So it's, surely not daily rental, which is different to your hotel, but for proper sort of long-term rental, the landlord-tenant law in this city is tenant favorable and intentionally done by His Highness, so that when people come here as workers, etc., and they rent,
They feel protected.
correct. And so, if you're a landlord seeking a rental business and a return, yes, the returns are there, it's 12%, all that, but your hands are a little bit tied as to what you can do with that, and as you learned, and as many other people have learned. And so, the landlord-tenant law is tenant favorable. We've talked about it a little bit, but let me tell you a few things about it. First of all, there's a mandatory registration contract, which already, so you're registered, everything's clear. In a lease agreement, the terms should be clear. The payment schedule, the rent responsibilities, rental increases, is regulated. So that's one of the ways that the law is tenant favorable, is that there's rent caps. You can only raise the rent so much based on what the average rent is for that neighborhood. And there's a rental calculator, which you can go on the DLD and RERA website, which will tell you more. So I think from the landlord's perspective, you have to be careful not to, overplay your hand, and to focus on the ROI, focus on a good tenant, good property that you can get a good return to. So one of the issues that highlights why it is tenant favorable are the eviction.
Yeah.
So let's take your case. This person unfortunately left, didn't pay you. You will then have to go file a case, say this guy can pay, look, here's the proof he didn't pay, bastard, check balance, etc. Now it's gone. And it will take you, 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is, to evict him and to get the unit back and then proceed. So that costs you money and time. But that's true almost in anywhere in the world. If someone doesn't pay or does something illegal, and uses it for something illegal.
Yeah, but here at least he would leave. In other countries, they stay.
Yeah.
Well, even
Correct.
one of my relatives, he has an apartment, a very known European country, like very established, known as number one job poor. Their tenants spent 7 months, no payment, and just didn't in court with them. But they're both national.
Yeah.
From, they have nationality. At least here, because mainly you're renting expat and the laws and you're all visit like residents in Dubai.
Sure.
We follow the road law more.
Yes, you can evict based on non-payments easier than you can in Europe or North.
Exactly.
That is true.
Okay.
But the reason that the eviction rules favor the tenant is actually the next, which is that for anything that's non-fact, if you're running a nightclub in an apartment, which you shouldn't be, you'll be evicted. If you don't pay your rent, you'll be evicted. That's bad stuff. We're not bad stuff. Regulars. I just want this tenant to leave. I don't like this tenant.
Because I want to increase by 30%.
I just want to leave. You can't do that as a landlord here. There's only 3 reasons. 1, you want to renovate it. You have to get an engineer certificate that it has to be renovated. 2, you want to move into it yourself or your family. Well, let's say I want to move into the apartment, studio. So, I'm going to move in. Tenant, please go out. The judge will look at me and say, "Oh, sorry, sir. You seem to be married, 3 children. Are you going to move into the studio? And by the way, you seem to already have an apartment."
Yeah.
And so there's an inquiry as to why you want to do that. That's the second reason. And the third reason, there's only 3 reasons. Third reason is you want to sell it, which a lot of landlords do. But if you want to sell it, you should engage a broker. You should put ads out. And if you lie about it, you say, "I want to sell it," you don't sell it, that tenant could come back, sue you, get damages for the increased rent that they had to get, for the moving costs, etc. So that's another reason why the landlord-tenant law is quite unfavorable. That doesn't mean landlords should rent because the ROI is amazing, the business case is amazing. It's just important to be aware of these goalposts match.
From a landlord perspective and protection, the question would be is there any way that this might harm his ownership if he shifts from one place to another as long as he has certifications or no?
Meaning
like, can he say, "I want to remove a tenant from my apartment to put it on short term," for an example? If it's a shift of business?
I don't think they would accept that. I think the only 3 reasons are the ones that, assuming it's long-term, and you say, "I want to remove him and go to short-term rental," I think that would be a tough one because you're not selling it, you're not renovating it,
and you're not
moving in. Yeah. Perhaps in that case, you're going to renovate it in order to prepare it for short-term rental.
So you put renovation.
You'd have to back into it, as opposed to saying, "I want to do short-term rental." So, but that's not one of the reasons. Yeah, it's a good question.
Now, just for clarification, when an international investor is investing in Dubai and he's not a resident, what are his protection by law? Does the law apply to him differently from a resident, or the UAE law today protects a foreign investor and a resident investor equally? Same, right?
Yeah. So there's no difference as far as protection. Whether you're a foreign investor, whether you're a foreigner, whether you're a foreign investor, whether you're a resident, whether you're a national, local, Emirati, whether you're a GCC national, the protections afforded to you by the law are equal.
Equal to all.
They're equal to all. So you can come here on a beach vacation and decide to purchase a unit just because you like it. You will get the exact same protection as someone who's an Emirati or someone who's lived here for 40 years. The protections afforded by law, the title deed that you get, everything is the same.
So this is an extra protection for anyone who is thinking to invest in the UAE, knowing that he will be equally treated like the local community or the GCC nationals that has the rights to own equally to the local community.
Correct.
Or if you are a resident, a foreign resident in the country.
As you know, there are 2 different types of areas. Freehold areas,
freehold.
And there's the non-freehold, but only GCC national.
Correct.
This person would only buy in the freehold area.
One last one. How do Dubai property laws ensure transparency and accountability in off-plan real estate transactions? And recently, after this huge burst of deals that happened and the sale that happened the past 3 years, were there any new laws or amendment to laws that were implemented, especially on the payment aspect?
First of all, I want to give a shout out to RERA and DLD, who really have worked very hard to keep up with the pace of construction and development here.
Yeah.
You can imagine that you're a government regulator, and before, the 2000s, you have a few towers going up. They're not very tall, one in Bur Dubai, one in Deira, etc. And then everybody shows up, and before you know it, they're sprouting up like beans everywhere. And so they've done a very good job over these years in interacting, being involved with developers, putting on sessions, talking about laws, getting feedback, developing laws, regulations, and regulating the developers. They know you. I'm sure that you know people at the department, and that's credit to them that they reach out to you. I know Mohammed, I know Ahmed, I know John, etc. So they're very involved, and they've done a very good job in regulating. Of course, it's a fast-moving development, fast-moving country. There's ups and downs, but overall, I would say congratulations to them. I think they've done a phenomenal job, to be honest.
Definitely.
And of course, congratulations to developers as well. But the protections that are afforded, the transparency that's afforded, is first and foremost brought to bear by the government. It's the government that gives you the confidence. It's RERA who's questioning you. So what's going on? You're supposed to hit this milestone. I've got a report that says you're 30%, you should be 40% in 2 months. What's happening? That's the involvement that then gives the investors the confidence to continue to invest.
Because the government has the right to stop a project if they're not going on the same milestone required, and they block the escrow account.
Exactly.
This is also for all the investors to know through this conversation who are listening to us, that it's not for them to follow up on the project. There is a real governmental department behind the developers.
Yes.
Just making sure that they are really earning the money that they're...
Of course.
Exactly.
Yes. They monitor what's coming in. They monitor your construction progress. They can stop things. They can do many things to make sure that the developer complies. And so that's first and foremost, it's an administrative function. And maybe a lot of people don't see that, but that's a lot of work. And that's where the confidence really comes from. And of course, attached to that are the two laws that we mentioned. There's Law 13 of 2008, the Okud Law, Interim Real Estate Registration, which gives you that title deed while the building is being built.
And the escrow.
And the sister law, which is the Escrow Account Law, Law 8 of 2007, which says that all the money that you pay goes into a special bank account, which the developer cannot touch without the permission of the government, who's regulating the entire thing. And so this gives tremendous transparency and confidence to investors. As far as new laws, really, we haven't had that much change in laws since about 2012, I would say.
Okay.
So there have been minor amendments here and there, but as far as real estate laws, the foundation of what needed to be laid has been laid, and developers have complied, investors have complied, and it seems to be working quite well for the market.
Perfect. That's it for me. Honestly, we wanted a little bit of clarity, and thank you so much for this amazing explanation.
My pleasure.
Without using a lot of jargons and technical words, we all understood exactly how to really understand. And this sheds a lot of light on the investment, because till date, we as a developer and the commercial team, when we're trying to sell product, my team, myself, and a lot of the fellow brokers, there was a lot of questions from investors to understand better, and usually what to look into the SPA and what is their protection. So thank you for giving us all this.
My pleasure to be able to help and add to the clarity and transparency.
Yeah. In case if there are any questions from who is attending with us, do you want to ask any question to Shahram to answer us? Any clarification on anything related to real estate laws and regulations? Yes.
Thank you so much for all the explanations. So just wanted to ask, during COVID time, like 2020, a lot of investors, they were very worried about their investments. So a lot of construction actually stopped. So during that time, were there laws in place already to protect the investors? Because some of them waited 7,
Yeah.
8 years
True.
for the project.
To complete.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's very interesting thing you bring up. COVID was a force majeure event. So if you think about the contract of purchase, which I described to you, and one of the provisions that I mentioned was force majeure, and I don't want to get technical, but it's very relevant to this discussion. And force majeure is an act of God, something that's happened that's affected the entire world. And so then the purchaser goes and says, you were supposed to deliver this to me in 2020. It's 2020 now. What is going on? The developer's answer is, I'm sorry, I'm doing my best, but we've experienced this issue. I can't even get people to come to the site to build. I can't get cement. I can't get, because of COVID. This is force majeure. It went to court. It went to arbitration, which is similar to court, and they agreed with developers and said, you're right. It is force majeure. Let's wait for this to finish. And so the period of COVID, generally speaking, is a pass. It's okay. We'll give you a pass for those 2 years, 3 years, but then the clock starts ticking again once that pandemic was over. Generally, that pandemic, I know the Dubai government announced it to be over relatively quickly, but when it comes to contracts, supply of things, etc., it's different. It's different. And so it's depending on fact. It's generally a 2 to 3 period at that time.
So we will conclude. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
It
My
was a
pleasure.
great pleasure. And let's see. Maybe we'll have another session. We'll prepare a few other questions and we'll see each other again.
Delighted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.